Okay, so there was a lot to absorb in what I just said. So what are you going to do for all of these? I kind of wrote you a cheat sheet, and this is what I'd be putting on my note card. How do you find the percentile or the percentages using a bell curve chart? So again, there's the empirical rule in which you are going to draw the bell graph, the normal distribution, label them, and use those percentages. That only works if it tells you to use the empirical rule, and if your z-score is a positive or negative 1, 2, or 3. So what do you do for all the rest of these problems? You're always going to start by finding the z-score of the data item. Then you're going to look up the table value, the area beneath the curve of the z-scores, and then I want you to do the following things. So the first thing you need to do is determine what is the question. Do they want to know the percent or amount below? Do they want to know the percent or amount above? Or do they want to know the percent between? Okay, so they're going to be asking one of those three questions. Do they want the amount below, the amount above, or the amount between? Then I want you to look at your z-scores, if your z-score is negative or your z-score is positive. And those are going to be different cases every single one of those times. Okay, so you got to be very, very careful with this. If you're another visual person, so here's your z-score and here's your percent. So if they want to know the percent above versus below, if they have a z-score that is positive or a z-score that is negative, you could use this chart right here. So if the z-score is positive and they want to know the percent above, z-score is positive and they want to know the percent above, you're going to do 0.5 minus a. If the z-score is positive and they want to know the percent below, you're going to do 0.5 plus a, the chart value. If your z-score is negative and you want to know the percent above, you're going to do 0.5 plus a. And if they want to know the z-score is negative and they want to know the percent below, you're going to do 0.5 minus a. So I don't know which one of those charts helps you out, but that's what you're looking for percent above or below, z-score positive, z-score negative. That tells you exactly how you're going to answer those questions. So the last question is, what if they want the percent between? Well, you have to look at your two z-scores. Find your z-scores. If your z-scores are both positive or both negative, all you do is subtract those a values. Again, if they're the same sign, if both z-scores are positive or both z-scores are negative, you're going to find the chart values and subtract the chart values. If the z-scores are opposite signs, one z-score is positive and one z-score is negative, find those chart values and actually add them together. So that's how you can answer all of the questions that are possible in all the different possible cases for these problems. Do they want percent above, percent below, or percent between? Are my z-scores positive, negative, or if I have two z-scores, are they the same signs or opposite signs? Okay? So let's look at this. It says a soda machine dispenses 12-ounce cups. Tests show that the actual amount of soda dispensed is normally distributed with a mean of 11.5 ounces and a standard deviation of 0.2 ounces. What percentage of cups will receive less than 11.25 ounces of soda? So they want less than means below, and now we need to find out what our z-score is. Always the first thing you're going to do is find out what that z-score is. So if you remember how to find the z-score, so this is the z-score of the 11.25 ounces of soda. The z-score is always the data value, 11.25, minus the mean, which is 11.5, divided by the standard deviation, 0.2. Again, data minus mean over standard deviation. And you always have to do data item first because sign does matter here. So what are you getting? Please put that into your calculator. I'm getting a z-score of negative 1.25. If it were more decimals, remember our chart rounds all answers to 2 decimals. So always round your answer to 2 decimals. Okay, so what have I just figured out? In this case, we need below, and we have a negative z-score. So we want the percent below, and we want a negative z-score. If I go up to my chart, let's look at my chart. If I have the percent below and a negative z-score, I'll show you what I'm looking at. Here's the percent below. Here's a negative z-score, so it looks like I'm going to do 0.5 minus the chart value. So I'm going to do 0.5 minus the chart value. 0.5 minus the chart value. Okay, so what do I need to do? Let's go in and let's actually look at the chart. So if I have a z-score of negative 1.25, again, That's the exact same thing as a z-score of positive 1.25. So go to that chart and see what value you get. I'm looking at a value of 0.394. Please verify that. Again, this is on page 8 of the notes. That's the chart that I'm looking at, is page 8 of the notes. So there's my chart value. So if I look at this problem, I'm going to do 0.5 minus 0.394. Again, the reason that I knew that is because it wanted less than, and I calculated my z-score, and my z-score was negative. So that gave me my formula. So what is 0.5 minus 0.394? I'm getting 0.106. That's the decimal version, so go ahead and multiply that times 100 or hit the percentage conversion or move the decimal to the right too. That is 10.6%. Why did I write it as a percentage? Because straight up, that's what it said. Write it as a percentage. Okay? Let's try the next one. It says, what percentage of cups will receive between 11.2 ounces and 11.55 ounces of soda? So here I have between. When I have between, I need to calculate two separate z-scores. I need to calculate or look at two separate chart values. And then I need to decide, do I add those values together or do I subtract them? And that depends on if my z-scores are both positive or negative, or if my z-scores are opposite signs. Okay, so first things first, let's find that z-score. So what about a z-score of 11.2? Well, let's do the data. 11.2 minus the mean, which is 11.5, divided by that standard deviation, which was 0.2. So let's find our first z-score. Looks like my first z-score that I'm going to use is negative 1.5 is what I'm figuring. So my first z-score is negative. Let's look at the next one, a z-score of 11.55. So I do the data, 11.55, minus the mean, 11.5. I divide that by the standard deviation, 0.2. See what you get. I'm getting a z-score of 0.25. I want you to notice that these are opposite signs. So let's see here. I'm going back up to my little notes here, and it says if I want the percentage between and they're opposite signs, I add them. If they're opposite signs, I add them. So what am I going to do? Go back down here. I'm going to find the chart values, and then I'm going to add those chart values together. So I want to add the chart values together. So let's go ahead and start looking at our chart. What is our chart when I have a z-score of negative 1.5, or in this case it's 1.5? What's my area? Okay, and then I also need to find, for a chart value of 0.25, what's my area? What's that chart value? So go ahead and look those up now, please. When I'm looking at the chart, again, this is the chart on page 8 of the notes. 1.5, I'm getting an area from the chart of 0.433. Let me make that a little more clear. And at 0.25, I was getting 0.099. So those were my two areas. Again, what am I doing with these two areas? I'm going to add them together. So 0.433 plus 0.099. Add those together, I'm getting 0.532. Please check my math. That's the decimal version. It wanted the percent. So converting that to a percent, I would have 53.2%. I hope that makes sense for you. So these formulas, extremely, extremely important to have on your note card. Okay, so if they want between, if it's the same, you subtract. And if they're opposite signs, your z-scores, you add. So z-score, I'll just write z-score and z-score. Same sign and opposite sign. Okay, if your z-scores are the same sign, you subtract. Z-scores are opposite signs, you add. So that would be my abbreviated version that I'd put on my note card. That's going to tell you how to answer every single one of those questions. Please, please, please add that to your note card.